But Pareto's principle, I always go back to, this is the 20%. These are the things you have to get done. Like, they're so important in the business, and then send them over your direction. That's awesome, man. Well, let's transition. I kind of a different question. So I was in the private equity space for a while, just like you, and built a couple businesses in the oil and gas space, utilizing private equity capital, and learned a lot of lessons from that. But I've seen that there's a pretty big movement into the law firm space, the CPA space, the financial advisor space, basically any white collar service space, where private equity companies are coming in and rolling up law firms. What do you think that looks like, and how does that affect the client experience? Do you think it's good, bad, indifferent? Like, tell us a little bit of what you think about that.
It's Wild West. I mean, that is brand new. It's just within recent that some states have allowed for private equity to come in and take over law firms. Obviously, that's sought after by private equity because of the multiples and because of the margins with law firms are different because it's service-based and because of other factors. And so I don't know where that's looking. You know, these private equity, bringing money into law firms can be advantageous because there's so many firms out there that struggle with capital. You know, it's really hard when only way you can get capital is through attorneys. And those are struggles there, especially if you're a boutique law firm. So I think there's some value in that. There's probably some value with these attorneys learning how to run a business and not a job.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, a podcast for purpose-led entrepreneurs looking to master the art of buying, selling, or optimizing small businesses. Your host, Chris Seegers, founder of Exceptional Companies and author of Selling Main Street, has over a decade of experience starting, buying, and leading successful businesses. He's here to guide you through the complex world of business transactions and growth. Each week, we dive deep with actionable insights, expert interviews, and real-world strategies to activate and equip you to live exceptionally and build exceptional businesses. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Here's your host, Chris Seegers.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, where we discuss how to buy, build, and eventually sell your business. I'm joined today by an awesome guest, Paul Manson. Paul is the owner of Manson Law and Planning Group. He's scaled a really successful business. In the industry, we've got a lot of experience in that is usually heavily weighted towards solo practitioners or smaller firms. And I pulled some of the information off your website. The primary goal of Manson Law is to build lifelong partnerships based on trust and care. And we've seen that in the folks that we've sent your way. But Paul, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. So, man, I would love to hear just the story of how you got into the space, how you built that business, and why you're different, why you thought through, hey, I want to build something big and that doesn't necessarily require me on a day-to-day basis like most attorneys.
That's great. You know, my story, I was actually a private equity trader back in, 2000 to 2010. And during that time, I decided to just kept reading kind of what was my next step? What was I going to do? And obviously I was just like, well, let's just go to law school. And so I don't know what I was smoking that day, but made that decision and went to law school. And I think it was like the first day I'm there and I'm like, yeah, this is just not these are not my people. Like, we're just different. You know, my mind is very math oriented. It was very analytical. It was just different. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. I mean, this is a great profession. And with that background that I had in finances and numbers and when I found estate planning, when I found this other side of the law, I was like, I always put it like Good Will Hunting. If you've ever seen the movie where he's talking to his girlfriend and talking about playing the piano, and she was a piano player, and he's like, yeah, when I see the piano player, I see just like chopsticks. I don't see it, but when it came to this, I could play. And that's how estate planning was for me, is I could play. I just understood it. I understand the risk side. I understand what we're doing, the protection side. It got back to just making sense to me. And so during that time, I just took all classes that were like LLM, all I did was estate taxes and taxes. And that's what I took. And, I didn't even take evidence in law school. So I always tell people, like, they ask me like a law question. I'm like, I'm not a real attorney. I can't answer any of those questions. I've seen as many movies as you have, but when it came to this area, I could play. And so funny story was, I was in law school, still working my job, doing these kind of things. And a buddy of mine were running triathlons together. And so we're running triathlons together, and we were in Texas, and I'm like, this is freaking hot. Like, I remember getting on my bike, and it was 5 o'clock, and it was 104, and we're going for like a 60-mile bike ride, and I'm going,
Golly.
I never want to do this again. Like, I don't know what we're doing, but I'm leaving Texas, and I love Texas, but man, I can't deal with this heat anymore. And so I looked at him, I was like, why don't you come with me? And so he's like, long story short, he's like, well, if you choose anywhere besides Colorado Springs, I'll have to check it out. Well, we had friends and family here. We got to Colorado Springs, and I was like, came back from like a 6 week trip, and I was like, yeah, we're going to Colorado Springs. He's like, crap, you called my bluff. And so I just finished in law school. I was there. He goes, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. So instead of doing anything I did, we started an insurance company. So he moved down here. We started an insurance company, which just kind of prolonged like this whole idea of like risk and those kind of things. And during that time, I also started a law firm, which was a great thing that I did because I approach these businesses as businesses and not jobs. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to. I mean, I was being pulled in different directions. And so what did that mean for me? And so when I moved down here, I had done some different things, but started a couple different companies, and it allowed me to approach it differently. And which is why, I think Mason Law has been so successful because I've been able to get out of my own way and allow people that are better at different things to be those things. And we've just grown and approach it from that perspective. And so that's kind of a short story to a long story of really what happened. But that's kind of where I got to where I was at and started Mason Law.
I love it, man. So tell us a little bit about just the need in the marketplace. So we've started a couple businesses because we saw this need in the marketplace and clients were asking us, hey, we need help in this. Can you guys scale a business around this? But what was the need you saw, whether it be kind of, nationwide or more specific to Colorado, that Mason Law was doing things differently?
Yeah, I think there's always been a need for a good planners and especially attorneys that can think analytically and understand numbers. Those are not they're not that common, especially with the decrease in the estate tax exclusion amount. You really had a lot of older attorneys that were brought up in this world are retired and done. And so there's just very, very few of us left that understand some of these things. And so for me, having been able to play in that market, and it was something that I could do and enjoying the work is really where I got into that field. I was just fortunate enough that one of the first persons I was introduced to had a program that was similar to what we do, where it was very relational built. Bring a client on, build a relationship, and then maintain that relationship. And so instead of doing transactional work, do relational work. And that was
Mhm.
my very first client. I signed up, said, hey, you're going to be relational. And so the thousands and thousands of clients we've signed up in the past, all of them are relational. And what that's done for us is build a firm where we have a relationship with people and we're not selling a transaction. And that's been just the biggest difference from between what we do and what others do and why it's so valued. It's why I literally speak in front of people all the time that are just intrigued by how we do it because the typical way practicing law just sucks.
Mhm.
It's just you're selling your time. No one likes it. No one likes getting bills from people where it's like, well, how much time did it take you to write this email? When maybe there was a more efficient way to do that email, but it doesn't matter when you're not being compensated to do something more efficiently. You're actually being
Mhm.
compensated to do things less efficiently. And so now it just sucks for everybody. And so that was a big difference from what we did and what we saw. And I was just blessed enough to take day one that way. And then with my background, it just made sense.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about kind of the team and process approach because I've had two attorneys on staff in our oil business for a decade. We've also used a lot of different firms, both on the litigation side, on the business planning, et cetera. But one of the things that's so tough is there's some tremendous attorneys that may be a solo practitioner with an admin, and they're as good as the capacity of that one person, like you said, trading time for money. But then if you don't time it based on their schedule, where you're like, hey, we need something done in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and they could be phenomenal. They don't have the redundancy, the team, the process is built to where it's like, yeah, we've got all these people that we can slot in for this particular thing. So tell us how you thought through that, because I think it's pretty unique.
Yeah, I mean, tell me what entrepreneur wants to keep doing the same thing over and over and not building systems to make that work. How did Ford grow its cars? It didn't sit there and build one car all the way through and then go, crap, let's go build another car. I mean, that was what was done before. And so there's not a business out there that hasn't figured out how to build systems and things in place other than law firms. And
Mhm.
so, because they're not incentivized to do that. There are people that sell their time. And, they have however many days in the time, and all they can do is charge more, right? You can get to where, well, now I'm not charging 300, now I'm charging 800, now I'm charging
Mhm.
1,000, but you're always going to be capped on that 8 hours, that 10 hours. That's where your cap is. And so businesses don't function well. And the problem is you're also having to do everything
Mhm.
because your time, and so like I have people that do things that are way better than I am, way, way better at it than I am at this, and this is their job, and this is that job. Now, ultimately, we're responsible as an attorney, but even when we hire people, it's our law firm. We hire them. This is us. This is the team that you're getting, and this is why. And we sell our product. We don't sell our time. And it's just not work that way. So it allows us to build systems. What's the best for the client and what's the most efficient? It allows us to
Mhm.
spend time with the client because I'm not worried about time. It doesn't matter because I have systems built in place. And so that's what's really allowed us to be a lot different in that area. It's allowed us to be scalable. And then because we're relational built and clients are assessing us that way, it allows us to staff just differently than anyone else would be able to. And it's been a game changer for us. I always play it like it's playing in Coors Field with the aluminum bat. It's so much different because of that.
Yeah, I love that. And when we talk to either budding entrepreneurs or folks in the business, I always tell them, I'm like, there's really, you can have a job, right? That's a business. You can have a lifestyle business, or you can build something that has enterprise value when you want to sell it or exit it. And any three of those is fine as long as it's aligned with your goals and you're 100% like that is what you want, not just, you're settling for it. But there's very few people that go for that enterprise value. And honestly, it's not that much more work. It's continuing to scale and implementing processes, getting the right people in the right seats, and honestly, removing that owner involvement. That was one of the things that really impressed me about Mason Law when I first started to get to know your team, which is similar to my team. A lot of times you're not going to see me in the office. I work on high level relationships. I'm working on growing the business. I'm thinking about vision. I'm thinking 10 years out. And some people don't like that, right? They're like, hey, why aren't you here? And I'm like, well, we have a whole team, like you said, that's better than me at these things. And they know when to pull me into the thing that I'm the best at, which is generally complex negotiations and legal docs and that sort of thing, or just thinking about how to scale that enterprise value. But I love that about Mason Law because we want somebody that we can send tons of clients, right? If we send 2 to 5 clients a month to you guys, and there's only one attorney, I know at some point now I'm looking for another attorney. But you guys have that redundancy in that team. And we encourage that with all of our clients. We're like, hey, figure out the processes that you need to get you out of the business so you can look down on the business. And then that's when you can really start growing that thing. What did that look like from a ladder for you as you built the firm and now you're like, okay, I still am doing the work, but now I'm hiring the people and I'm working on the business? How did you do that? And did you do it well? Did you do it poorly? Did it take a long time? Like, give us a little bit of insight, because that's a tough one for business owners that are in it. They're like, I don't know how to get out of this.
Yeah, I mean, at first is that hero complex, right? Like you're the hero, you have to do everything. And you know who the worst are heroes at? Lawyers. Like they're the worst. Like they're everything. Oh, and so luckily for me, I think I'm so bad at so many things that I've learned to be like, I don't need to be that, right? And even some of the things I think I'm okay at, I've learned, man, I really wasn't that good. I mean, people are better
Mhm.
than me. I think my thing is I show up every day. I'm not afraid to go at it. I think that's my gifting. And so having that just set aside, like where I'm just like realize I'm just not I'm not that. Allow for me to see that differently. And I think that's a big thing for entrepreneurs, right? Like yeah, you're going after it, you're doing those things, but the quicker you can realize that people have skill sets that your skill set is being the entrepreneur, and you really need to think that through. And as an entrepreneur, there's so many things that are bad. Like the whole thing is you keep making mistakes, but what you do is you learn from that mistake and you say, how do I get better? We have a thing in our
Mhm.
office. It's okay to make a mistake. Let's just not make the same mistake twice, right? Let's
Mhm.
learn from that. And I think so much of it is going, let's try something. Let's see if this works. And sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes it's the right idea, but you need to continue to tweak it and do that. And, as this hero complex situation is, if you recognize the fact that this isn't going to work, because ultimately you get to where you just like, I can't do more. Like I
Mhm.
can't. So then you have to make a decision. So the decision is either I continue to be feeling burned out, I continue not being able to get to where I want to go, or you have to make the hard decision to let things go. And guess what's going to happen when you do that? Mistakes are going to get made. Things are not going to work out. Like things are going to be hard, but you have to become to the resolve of like, I know this is the right direction and keep pushing through it. And that's just something you've got to do. And you're going to look back and, if you want to get there, the only way to do that is to go through it. And obviously the quicker you have that mindset and the way you start from the beginning helps. The more often you've done that, it helps. But I think every entrepreneur has to learn that somewhere, somehow.
What was one of the key hires or key kind of decisions along that journey that you're like, man, you gotta get this thing lined out?
Some of our key hires are those kind of things.
Yeah, or just ones that you think like looking back, you're like most business owners are going to need to get this person in place or this process in place.
If you're an entrepreneur, usually you're going to need that person who's the implementer, who can do all the things, your crazy ideas. So you get that person right, that's the winner, right? Like that is the winner because they're going to be able to take your ideas and your thoughts and be able to actually put them in place and be able to get through some of those the daily tasks. And so that's a really big hire from that perspective. Obviously, I'm an attorney, so me finding the right attorneys are a big deal. So maybe if you're whatever you're into, that one key person, if it's sales or if it's a developer or whatever, those things could be very, very important. And I'll tell you, the other issue that we came across, especially, one of our other businesses that we do is captives. And so I work with business owners all across the country, helping the business owners set up insurances. But I hear their story, I hear their problems. And I will tell you, from 2021 through 2024, 25, all these business owners have been in business for 20 years. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. This sucks. It's just awful. Like, I can't find talent, can't keep it's just better. I don't know how many, like I had a good 25% of them that sold, multiples were out the wazoo. They were like, this is a great time. I'm going to take my ball and go home. It was a hard time to find talent, to keep talent, to deal with all the problems that businesses owners, we have different problems now, but those were difficult times. I tell you, the other thing that helped us is, finding the right HR person. And that was kind of a scary because I was inviting them into these stories and with all our companies and all our employees, but finding that person can come in and help us grow and expand. And it wasn't on all my managers to do that. Someone who enjoyed doing that really let us take it to the next level. So when we have to go and we have to either expand or we have to deal with those problems, it's on person that wants to be able to deal with those problems, and it's not just another part of their job having to manage all the other things. And so that was a big hire for us too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we do a lot of personality assessments and really trying to get, Jim Collins' old adage, like get the right person in the right seat. And for a long time, we had a lot of the right people, but they were like maybe 25% in the wrong seat or 50% in the wrong seat. And they hated that part of it, right? And most of us as entrepreneurs, you have to sit in those seats where you're like, man, I'm really not good at the detail work, but I need this to be done right. But eventually trying to get to that maybe 70 to 90% in the right seat, because that just lights them up and they're good at it and they're going to do a much better job than you. I love that, man. So let's get more specific to business. So most of our clients are, business owners, budding business owners or folks looking to sell their businesses, and probably similar on yours. I'm guessing a lot of your clients own businesses. So tell us a little bit about the intersection of estate planning and business and why it's so important. I'll tell you, a lot of times when a business owner comes to us and says, hey, Chris, we want you to launch this business sale, we slow way down, we build a personal plan, a wealth plan, and a business transition plan. And oftentimes we say, hey, we need to work on the estate planning before we do anything else, before we even talk about valuation and where we need to go with this. But talk a little bit about that intersection.
Well, there's so much levels, and from the beginning level, let's just say I'm a business owner and I hired an employee. What we saw during COVID is I had a business owner down south, and both the husband and wife had like 20 employees, and both of them were going on a ventilator within 2 hours of each other, and payroll was due next week. You got 20 employees, you got to deal with payroll, and they were the only two owners of the business, only two signers. So if you don't have the proper documentation in place, how does your business go on? How do people get paid while you can't do those things? And so, it's crucial for any business owner with employees to be able to think about the what ifs if something happens that you can't. People weren't envisioning COVID. Like this wasn't out there, but we had business owners that were like, how do I take care of this? In a small business, these people become like family. You got people in there that maybe work for you for 10, 15 years. You don't want to leave them on the street. And so it's really important that you start working that from that prospect. You also have the issue of like, where are you trying to go? Is this a legacy for your family? What are you trying to do? How is that going to work? If you're getting to the ultimate point you're selling, what does that look like? All that's related. Taxes matter for a lot of people, estate taxes, planning. You've got an exemption amount that is relatively high for a lot of people. So you can even have a successful business owner who sells their business for 10 or $15 million, and they're, 65 or 70, who may not have an estate tax, but you get a 40-year-old that sells their business for $20 million, you better believe that you're going to have some problems down the line. And so you've got to deal with putting those things in place, because the best time to plan is yesterday. The second time, the best time to plan is today, and so it's one of those deals where I can't do tomorrow planning what I could have done 20 years ago. And so the quicker someone gets and starts thinking through those issues, it allows for them to be potentially have more success and more opportunities in the future. And so they are correlated together. I mean, every business owner needs to make sure that they have the proper plan in place, because you're not just dealing with your immediate family. You're dealing with your immediate family, but you're also dealing with your employees, and you're also dealing with this living entity, this breathing thing that needs contingencies. It needs plans in place to be able to deal with those things. And so, that's why it's so important for business owners to be able to think through this. But what happens with a business owner is they just get started. An entrepreneur just jumps in and they're like, I don't know, this is my today problem. Tomorrow's my tomorrow problem. And so I don't know how many entrepreneurs have walked in my office and got these very successful businesses, and they're just like, I just put my head down every little bit. And I look up, okay, and then I put my head down. And so it's definitely not uncommon for a business owner to come see me that's well in advance with their business and being like, I just haven't done anything, or I've got all these entities that are sitting out here and they're not really working together. It's obviously better if we can start and set it up from the beginning, but there's very few 30-year-olds that I have come to my office that I can see the potential where they're going, that we're able to do that. Most of the people are much more along in their career path, and so we're having to work through those things. But obviously, the quicker and the easier you get it done, the more options you have, and it just makes it easier. But business owners are entrepreneurs for a reason. They jump first, and then they're going, where are we going? And they're already in the air, and that's just a typical response, because they've got to be able to make decisions quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was coaching some young guys who have a tech startup, and I think it's going to be really successful. And the young guy was like, all right, we're going to take it to 20 million in revenue in 3 years. And I was like, he's like, what do you think about that? I was like, I hope you don't do that, because you guys aren't equipped to take a business to 20 million in 3 years. What if we took it to 1 million first and did that really well, build the infrastructure, take it to 5 to 10, and then 20 once you have the right processes and the right legal structures and the right people in place? Because if you take it to 20, you're going to break it. And then you're probably going to go through one of the phases of, either personal or professional bankruptcy, which we've seen a lot in the past couple of years. And so getting that proper planning in place on the front end is so important. A question that we love to ask our potential clients is, do you know what your business is worth? And if you sold your business today, would it fulfill your personal and financial goals? If you're a successful business owner, but you don't know when or how to sell your business, and if you've ever wondered what each additional day in your business is actually costing you, we'd love to chat. If you're ready to spend more time with your family, your friends, or traveling, come sit down with our team, because when you work with exceptional business advisors, we'll help you build a blueprint to sell your business successfully and help you create, capture, and achieve your dream life. Don't wait for the right time. The time's now. Go ahead and scan the QR code or book a discovery appointment at excoadvisors.com. What are some, like when a client comes in that's a business owner, what are some of the usual big holes or areas or kind of blind spots that you guys help them see?
Yeah, I don't think anything, they're not thinking through all what could happen, right? Oh, I didn't even realize that if I go down today, I'm not talking about death. Like I get into an accident, I'm in the hospital, and I'm in a coma for a month or two. Legally, how do people deal with this problem? And so they don't really think about those issues. And so that's kind of a wake up call. I mean, all of them know, like, I need to get this done, but it's at what point and what level and what quadrant is it on for me to make it happen? And so it's never when they come to my office, we're getting work done. It's not a matter of whether or not we're going to get work done. The hard part was them to show up in my office. The hard part was them to make the call and go, you know what, I should get on the calendar. I should show up. Once they do that, that's the hard part, because our job's to take care of that, right? Our job's to go, okay, here's what we need to do. And they don't push back. They go, I know, that's why I'm here. The hard part for them was, okay, I'm going to make a day and I'm going to take it and I'm going to actually make this a priority. That's the difficulty for the business owner because they got so many other problems and it became an issue enough where they said, I need to get here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell folks like statistically, 80% of your net worth is going to be tied up in your business. And so you haven't, put the legal structures around that. You've got 80% downside risk, not 10%, not 5%. Hey, we didn't tie this in. We didn't tuck that in. It's like, no, everything. And like you said, I think that's a great example is if something happens to you or your spouse, depending on who's running the business, and you have to make payroll, how does that happen, right? Like if you haven't walked that out legally, hey, bank account, something happens, your trust isn't funded correctly and bank accounts get shut down. You go to the bank, they're like, sorry, you can't actually access this capital to fund ADP to pay your payroll. What happens then? Because I'll tell you, no matter what, with employee loyalty, people have to pay their bills. So a couple weeks, maybe all it takes to take a business worth 10, 15, $20 million and have it fall apart because the core management team says, hey, we need to get paid. We can't just sit around. Now, hopefully they have a little bit more of a savings account than that, but most people don't.
And it's not even just about, making sure that those people are taken care of. It's you have people that rely on that paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. And forget the value of your business. You built a business because these people put their sweat and tears into a business and believed in what you were doing in your product. You kind of owe it to them to make sure that they're also taken care of, right? Like any good business person sees that. And so it's not just about to protect my 80% of my value and my net worth. Yes, that's true. Yes, that makes difference. But it's also making sure that they're taken care of, making sure they don't have to worry about these things because that's your responsibility and you want to make sure you're taken care of. So those things are really important. And business owners understand that. They just haven't taken the time to make that happen because there's other problems. Well, if I don't get this widget done, then we have a problem and we're not going to make that. And how am I going to make payroll if I can't get this set? Like there's all these other problems. It's just something that they need to realize that it's important to put in place because if we don't do it now, it may be too late. It may be I can't do it.
What are some of the questions or stories you and your team use to get entrepreneurs past that busyness and into your office? Because I think that's right, whether it be wealth planning or legal planning or accounting and tax planning. I mean, for us, that's been a challenge of really trying to tell a story like, hey, this is what happened to somebody that didn't have the right structure set up. But what are some of the ways that you just really kind of incite that urgency and that importance?
Try to get in front of them. Try to let them hear you. So much of that is once they recognize it, it's hard because I don't call them to call me. They have to call me or see me. So we try to be in front of them. Obviously business owners talk to other business owners. And so it's, hey, have you gone here? Have you talked to this? Have you taken this? That's usually a really, peer pressure from their friends and their peers to be like, hey, I got this in place. You really need to get this in place. When they're talking to a Chris and Chris is like, hey, we'd like to get this stuff done. But you really need, okay, that's what triggers a lot of this action. It's not that they know that they're smart people. They know they need to do it, but sometimes that pressure is what's really happening. The amount of people that actually come see me that don't engage with us, that are business owners, is tiny. It's them actually showing up in the office. And that's the hard part for them because they're going, all right, I'm going to take the time. I'm going to make this a priority. So much of that is just who they're running around with and making sure that people are telling them and encouraging them when they're seeing the success from their end.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we had a client that we sent your direction. Not sure if you worked with them or not, but their business is probably worth around $15 million. They came in and just, all right, we want to build this thing to sell it, and we want to start talking about kind of next 10 years. And I said, all right, well, tell me a little bit about your business. And through that discovery, we found out that the business was incorrectly titled in their mom's name, who was having some, potential issues on health-wise. And I'm a pretty brutal guy because I want people to get their goals. And I said, look, guys, if you don't do this planning now, like immediately next week, this business, if something happens, your mom goes away. You will lose $15 million. It's going to vanish immediately because your clients require such a high level of performance from you. If it takes you 3 to 9 months to go through probate, to get everything lined out, your clients will be gone because they have to be, because they need the thing done that is in the construction trades that needs to be done. And they were just like, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, and you've been working with attorney for 10 years. They should have told you that. I think as like advisors, we don't push in sometimes enough where we're just like, hey, I care enough about you to be really, really forceful and hard, because this is not just a small little thing that is, a non-issue. This is something you built for 20 years that could just disappear like that. And so we've definitely had to push in a lot harder, because I think people are getting desensitized by everything. Everything's important. You got to get your insurance. You got to get this. And it's, yeah, those are the most important. But Pareto's principle, I always go back to, this is the 20%. These are the things you have to get done. Like, they're so important in the business, and then send them over your direction. That's awesome, man. Well, let's transition. I kind of a different question. So I was in the private equity space for a while, just like you, and built a couple businesses in the oil and gas space, utilizing private equity capital, and learned a lot of lessons from that. But I've seen that there's a pretty big movement into the law firm space, the CPA space, the financial advisor space, basically any white collar service space, where private equity companies are coming in and rolling up law firms. What do you think that looks like, and how does that affect the client experience? Do you think it's good, bad, indifferent? Like, tell us a little bit of what you think about that.
It's Wild West. I mean, that is brand new. It's just within recent that some states have allowed for private equity to come in and take over law firms. Obviously, that's sought after by private equity because of the multiples, and because of the margins with law firms are different, because it's service based and because of other factors. And so I don't know where that's looking. These private equity bringing money into law firms can be advantageous, because there's so many firms out there that struggle with capital. It's really hard when only way you can get capital is through attorneys. Those are struggles there, especially if you're a boutique law firm. So I think there's some value in that. There's probably some value with these attorneys learning how to run a business and not a job, and that should provide some things. But I don't know what that tipping line is, right? Like, you've also seen private equity come in and destroy some of these things over time, because they're looking to, how do I sell that next tranche to that next private equity, and how's that one go to the next fish? And so by that third or fourth fish, you can dilute a product and be bad. I don't know. And hopefully some of these private equities are getting smarter with what that looks like, and hopefully they're recognizing some of the destruction that they've done, and where they've decreased that value. It's usually not the first or second tranche. It's usually farther down the line that we're having the problem. But as far as law firms go, I think it's a Wild West. I mean, so before, because it's service based, that was controlled by only attorneys being able to control this. I don't know that. I mean, most law firms, unless you're a large, big firm, they can struggle with some of these business things and some of this capital. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, a law firm in general. I can tell you a lot of estate attorney firms, the attorney would time out. And so a lot of those people come to my office because they haven't been able to build something bigger than themselves. And so the attorney just sits up and retires. But they also didn't build a practice that was based off of relationships. It was based off of transactions. I think you said, I was working with this attorney, this company was working with attorney for 20 years. Yes, they were doing a transaction for something. It wasn't a relationship for an overall, what are you doing? And so that's what creates those issues. So I don't know. I mean, it's out there. It's in some ways it's new. It's exciting from a situation that there's possibilities that weren't out there before. I think it definitely makes. I'm definitely glad to be on this side of it and not on 20 years from now, and everything's being owned by private equity and you're having to compete with that. So I think it's a good place for me to be.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as you think about that Wild West space that young attorneys are entering into, and maybe specifically ones that have an entrepreneurial bent like you did when you were younger, like, how are you guiding them? Because you have a lot of young attorneys that come into your practice, but just ones that you see out and about. You've got AI coming in, which is going to disrupt all white collar services, I believe. What's the advice that you're giving them if they're like, hey, I want to build something good, I want to build something with some legs, but things are changing so fast?
Yeah, I mean, if you're obviously going for the affluent person or those kind of things, they're going to find value in a relationship and service. They're not, the older I get, I was younger, I was very handy. I like to do things, right? This needs to be fixed or that wants to be fixed. I'm young. So what? I get older and I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Someone else can do that, because you just have a different perspective. And so I think if you're tailoring to people that really find value in having someone that can, make sure you're doing okay, make sure you're getting these things done, and it has that relationship, I don't know if that value is going to go away. Now, can you capitalize and use AI to help you build a better product? I do. If you're trying to compete with AI to service people that were never really going to be your really good clients, I'm not sure
Hmm.
that's the market to get in. And a lot of people do that. I'm not as worried about it. My clients enjoy the relationship. They enjoy going, sign here. This needs to be signed. Me calling them, and AI is not going to do that, right? AI is not going to be
Hmm.
able to print a piece of paper out for you and make sure it's signed and notarized. Like, it's not going to do that. But that's not my client. My clients value that because they're affluent and they recognize the value of having this thing done. So I think if you're an attorney or an entrepreneur, you've got to find an area where AI is not going to necessarily take over, and then you need to figure out how to use AI to make your product better. And I think those things are all accessible because it is a game changer. It is changing things. We are able to get things done so much faster and so much more effective, but you're going to need to figure out how that works. And I don't know where that's going either, but I do know that people that have resources will always value paying people to help them because they
Hmm.
become less and less likely to do that, and they're not going to do things on their own because they don't want to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and they value their time. And we always say our job is to remove friction. If we can remove friction in
Right.
whatever the area, whether it be financial advisory or insurance or whatever it is, like that, people will pay for that. So I've got a question that's come out of some of the other podcasts. I'm a huge pro-America guy. I think we just have the golden ticket, having been born in this country. I think there's so much opportunity. But there's been a lot of younger people that unfortunately don't share that optimism. What's some advice you'd give to somebody? I know it's tough out there and we're in the fight, right? Like we're dealing with all the same things that everybody is dealing with, which is, hey, is AI going to change every marketplace? Hey, inflation is crushing us. Costs are going up. Employees are tough. But I still think there's just so much opportunity to build an incredible, exceptional life in the US. But what's some advice just from more of a global, like US perspective that you'd share for a young person that's coming into the marketplace?
You know, maybe I'm different. Maybe this is the counter part of me, but in my mind, the young person actually has it way easier from this perspective. You look around with their peers. If you care and have a work ethic and are not entitled, you're 95% above the person sitting next to you. Like
Hmm.
the generation that's coming in and they're just, I want it now and I don't want to have spent 20 years to get there. And, it's the Instagrammer who's instantly, and they all think that's how companies and how life's built. That's not how things are built. You
Hmm.
go and you go the trenches and you show up every day. And if the person has that mindset, and if it's something that they're doing or they're working with someone, by definition, they're going to be able to make them. It does not take long at all for them to distinguish themselves. And that's not the reality years ago because all the competition was doing the same things. They knew how hard it worked. They were willing to do these things. And now if, it's the 20-second, attention span that are like, oh, it's not done yet, so it must be over. If you have a long attention span, you can show up and you can grind and you can sit there and go, I'm looking for, like you said, I like to sit down and look 10 years out. Like, why are you looking 10 years out? Because I know it's not going to happen today. It's a conversation in your head, like, let's start with the 1 million and then the 5, let's build this company up. If you can have the mindset of like, I'm not going to get there today, but today's a building block and I'm going to show up every day, man, you're well ahead of your competition. And most of them just don't have that because they're like, well, this guy did it in 24 hours. Okay, great. Right. But what did he do before that 24 hours to get there, And so it's those conversations. So I definitely think that it's going to be easy for those people to set themselves. You're going to shift it out really easy.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. All right. So as we kind of close, there's a couple questions I always end with. The first one is just where people can find you, but the second is there a tool, a book, a resource, something that was really a game changer for you in 2025 or going into this year that you want to share? And then just any parting wisdom. We touched on it a little bit, but first let's go. Paul, where can people find you? Where can they find your team?
Sure. We're Mason Law and Planning Group. Look us online, Mason Law and Planning. You'll be able to find us really easy. Ton of reviews, ton of people out there that are working with us, and so it's pretty easy to find us. And we'd love to be able to help you or answer questions or do whatever you need.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And then, all right, is there a book you're reading? Is there a tool? Is there a podcast, a mental model that you're like, man, this is something that really accelerated my game in 2025 or going into kind of this next year?
Yeah, there's two things I would tell you is never stop reading. Always be reading. Make it a part of your life of what can I learn next? How can this work? And just if you do that, man, go back to being 90, you go from 95 to 99% above everyone else from that. And the second thing is find peers or find a coaching group or find somebody that's been there and invest in that. You know, go find someone who's going to challenge you. Go find someone who's going to let you look and pay for it. You know, go do it. Make it a priority because you will do so much better by doing that. And so it is committed. You can feel like, oh, how am I going to make this back? But man, every time I do that, it pays 10x. You know, and so it would be my encouragement to any entrepreneur is go find something out there. You know, if some sort of group, it's a coaching group, it's something you can do that's going to challenge you, that's going to put you in a different perspective. Make it worth your time and your money.
I love it, man. Always be learning and always be around people that are learning. I think that's such good wisdom, man. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Really appreciate it. We'll have to have you back and just love all the growth and the journey you guys are on and highly recommend you to our clients and other folks around.
Chris, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate all you do and thanks for the day.
For sure, man. See you on down the road.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Exceptional Companies Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or via RSS so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like this show, please reach out through our website, www.excoadvisors.com for free tools to order a copy of Selling Main Street or to sign up for our free webinar on how to sell your Main Street business.